to Teens No Cap. I'm your host, Charity Chafee. I'm a licensed mental health counselor specializing in the treatment of teens. And this entire podcast is dedicated to talking about teens and treatment. So we talk to clinicians, we talk to parents, we talk to authors and doctors, psychiatrists, all the people to really understand the framework of treatment in teenagers and to give everyone help and support and resources. So today we are joined by Terry, Rousseau, and publishing team, Heidi and Alexia.
Hi. So lovely to be on your pod.
Hi.
So welcome everybody. I can't wait to talk about this because really, Terry, you wrote a book, but it sounds like all three of you really wrote this book about Jenna Finds a Dog. Thank you. Yes. Okay. So first, Terry, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how this book came to be?
Okay, yeah, I'm a doctor here, a little town called Rousseau, New Mexico. And basically, I started writing this. I mean, I've had a lot of patients. I've had a lot of children that have had issues. I'm a family doc, so I see everybody from the cradle to the grave. And being a small town here, you know, it's like I'm the man, I guess, so to speak. So at any rate, during COVID, when I wasn't on call in the hospital, I was doing clinic. I was so slow here in the clinic because obviously no one was coming. You know, I'd have maybe 2 or 3 patients during the lockdown. So I figured, well, all right, I've got all this time on my hands, and I need a little outlet. You know, so I started writing Jenna Finds a Dog as a screenplay as a movie. And originally, my idea was kind of more like a teen cult movie, like something along the lines of Juno or something like that. And that's where Alexia came into it. She saw the potential of the story. And I'll let you, Alexia, take it from there.
Terry, when he came with the query about the script, I'm a huge animal person, so I'm very active in the rescuing of dogs and cats, and I feel that animals are such magical creatures, and they're like literally what we call them angels on earth, right? That are helping, especially children, right? They're helping children, know what unconditional love is truly about. So when he brought us the script, we're like, this is going to make a really good movie. But as you know, everything right now is about books, and I said, well, we're waiting for the movie to happen. Why don't we put out a book for Terry? And that's when Heidi came in with her little magical editing skills, taking Terry's words and transforming them into a novel that is easily readable for kids, ages 8 to 12 or 8 to 14. And we feel that we need to really raise this new generation becoming aware about how important it is to save animals, how important it is to have animals in your household, and the effects that they can do to the psychology of a young mind, and how they can overcome so many odds in life by finding purpose, because also this book is about finding purpose, which is another angle that I love, where we're not just, hey, get the stray dog off the street and give it love, but maybe find purpose to know that, you can do anything. Even at 8 or 9, you can actually have a goal in life at that young age. And you can start early knowing what maybe your calling is going to be without having to give away the ending of the book. But I feel that that's what made us enthusiastic about it. And we're very boutique, but, Terry's work needs to become a movie, needs to become so many things, but we're like, well, while we're waiting, because, Hollywood is a little bit in transition right now, let's get this book out and get it appreciated. And it's doing very well. I was telling Terry, every time I look at the dashboard, it's selling lots, and I hope more people pick it up, because everybody needs to get a little motivation and a little help in, becoming the next generation of, trailblazers and game changers that our world needs so much right now. And I think the future is the children, and teenagers, of course, because that's your pod. It's about teenagers. They're the future, so we need to support them as the wise old men and women, and give them stories and content that they can actually relate with and know I'm not alone, and this book accomplishes that. It's teamwork, right? And it's overcoming odds, and it's about, embracing who you are. There's so many wonderful messages to this wonderful story that Terry created. So we're like, okay, we're going to publish you. We're going to try to get it seen by as many people as possible and read for parents to pick up. And Terry has been wonderful. He's donating the book to libraries as well, because he's obviously heart centered. It's not all about just mixed sales. It's about, let's get the story out and actually help. And that's what we got behind him. We love it.
I love that. So Terry, tell me a little bit more, because it sounds like this book was kind of written or inspired by working with some of the younger kids and the families that you had been seeing during COVID, and that there's a very strong kind of like mental health component to this.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's exactly what it is. I think mental health among kids and teens isn't really, it's not in the forefront. And I think we need to actually put it more in the forefront. And families these days, it's hard. I think the society we've developed here, it has made it incredibly hard to raise kids today and to be a kid today. And I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing a lot of kids that just are they're having a hard time making it, having a hard time dealing with the world. And that's what Jenna Finds a Dog. That's what this is all about. Her diagnosis that I have, I mean, in the book, there's no diagnosis. It's just she does her thing, But her diagnosis, in my mind, isn't really in the DSM at this point in time. It's the impulsive explosive disorder, IED, just flying off the handle, short fuse, short trigger, and not just flying off the handle, but flying off in such a way that they totally lose control. Totally. And I've seen that. I've seen kids with that, where parents or grandparents that are raising the kids, are actually scared. They're scared of their kids, and that's sad. It's not it's sad. And this is something, like I said, this is I wrote the book with an idea that, there are things in life we can do to try to help families that have these sorts of problems, and not necessarily just medicate the kids into nothingness. So that's why I wrote it. And I think we over medicate the kids, and I think a lot of that is because as parents or teachers, it's a lazy way out. It's kind of the easy way, just to medicate kids instead of teaching them or guiding them to learn how to cope with their own personalities, and how to cope with their own shortcomings, and how to even use the shortcomings as pivots to be able to achieve, with that. So that's kind of my idea of what I had when I wrote the book. I mean, when I wrote the screenplay, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, the thing that I love about it is that I do agree with you. Like, I think that there is uh, a lot of kids that are over medicated, and sometimes poorly medicated. And I think that I think a lot of people view medication as a first line defense when really it should be the second or third line defense. Right. And I think that there is a lot of parent coaching, there's a lot of family support, and there's a lot of activities outside of the household, right, that we can get kids involved in to help them learn regulation and purpose, and how do I problem solve, and how do I make decisions, and how do I find this like sense of self, right, outside of the family system. And I've definitely worked with a lot of kids who have been on medication for years, right? And sometimes I'm like, are your meds actually working? Or were you just put on them when you were younger because your parents didn't really know what else to do? So, and there's no shame for that. Like, I think that parents are always seeking something that is going to be helpful. And I also think that medication is something that parents look for as a quick fix. But we don't talk about the fact that it could take 3 years to find the right medication, and that you could be experiencing tons of different side effects, right? But involving a kid in an activity, right? Getting them in with animals, getting them in with arts and crafts or a different sort of community program could be so beneficial for like their sense of purpose, their sense of community, right? We talked so much when we were younger about how there's like it takes a community to raise a village, but nowadays it really feels like it's every family for themselves.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I wanted to say Heidi has a personal connection, having her own daughter who has been having issues with that, and Heidi, maybe you want to talk about that because again, it talks exactly about what you are speaking and why she got so connected to the story, right, Heidi? About
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, thank you. Sorry, I had some, but yeah, no, so my story, and why I connect with this as well too is when my oldest daughter was 14, she tried to commit suicide, and luckily she didn't succeed, but it did end her in the hospital, and of course that opened up a whole lot, and she was put on meds, and that was a roller coaster for us because we were told, the chemical imbalance and all that. And it was a roller coaster to figure out what worked for her. And we were in a small town where I felt that the doctors were just like throwing pills and see what sticks. And then when we would, and then when that would level out and she would dip down again, we would go back to the doctor and they would throw something else. And I remember at one point, she was on a med that when she came to another place, they were horrified because the doctor in our small town had put her on medications that were for an adult male, and it was times 4. So it was, she wasn't so, and luckily we have a good relationship. We've been talking, she's going through so much. I was able to get her help. And, so she really also, when we moved away from that place, it helped a lot as well. The environment we weren't in were not good for her. So obviously there's a lot of factors playing in, but she's now off meds because she said that I do not want to be on meds because I don't like how that makes me feel. And luckily, she's, been working on herself, working on stuff and keeping herself. So she's not off medicine. She knows what to do when she's starting to get those little, dips and, how to regulate. So, but, as a mom, having experienced that, I'm always on the alert. Whenever I'm seeing that she's not feeling good, I'm always like, are you good? Are you good? Do you need anything? So I know that's important. And having said that in the same breath, I came in when you were talking about, having activities. I do part-time work as a naturalist also at a preserve where we have kids coming from underserved communities and schools, and we do field trips. It's all nature and science-based. And, we have curriculums, that we go through. But I love seeing the kids that are, and I've never seen a squirrel before. They've seen it on TV, but they haven't seen a squirrel or a bunny real life before. So we're taking them through this reserve, and, in nature. And, sometimes like my lessons is, okay, let's just watch that squirrel and that hawk interact. And just that. And, some of the quote unquote tough kids that we get in, the trouble kids. And this is, these are regular elementary, second to high school, but, a little bit tough. They're the ones that at the end, it's like, I don't want to go home. Can I just stay here? I was like, yeah, you can help me clean up and clean the bathroom. Of course, just, come back. So I think it is important, for kids not only to have, things to do, but I don't think it's healthy for kids to be pushed into things to do just on purpose for having things to do, but just connect with nature. Just take them out to the beach if you're able to, or, in a park, just connect with nature. I mean, I'm serious when I say hug a tree. I make my kids go hug a tree and they look at me funnily, but then guess what I see when I turn around? I see them hug a tree. And I love going and I can hear in the back, I'm so happy. This makes me so happy. You know, it's worth it.
Yeah. I do think that's one of the things that's so interesting. Like when I was a kid, I spent like every summer outside all the time. We were gone until like it got dark outside, right? Like our curfew was like dusk, right? And we were, running around barefoot, like doing the thing. And nowadays, if you see a group of kids out running around, I also live in a small town, and it's really interesting to see the Facebook comments of people who are like, "There's a pack of kids running through the street, and they look like they're up to no good." And I was like, "Isn't that what we want? Like, don't we want kids out in community doing things?" And like one of them, literally, the lady was like, they had fishing poles, and I was like, they were going fishing. Don't we want that? Like, I have a horse and I do equine therapy, and I fully believe in the connection with animals, the connection with our environment. I was a camp counselor for 3 summers in the Adirondack Mountains, like living in a lean-to, right? And like we have lost that connection to the earth. We've lost the connection to animals. And I'm just like, I know that I'm the most regulated after I get back from riding my horse. Like I'm just like, oh, I can breathe, right? I'm regulated. And there's so much research on animal therapy, but yet we still are like, well, if it's not talk therapy, it's not working.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love what you said, and it's so true. It doesn't matter what animals. Obviously, dogs are wonderful, and this book is about the dog. But I have 3 cats. Heidi has cats. When I'm stressed out, I pet my cats, and when they're purring, like you said, it regulates the nervous system. It could be being in nature. I mean, Heidi also worked with the Best Friends Animal Sanctuary, and she her daughter also went on a camp at some point. Like we all, whatever it is that we can do, we do it. But the point is, we gotta get started with this messaging early, which is why we felt Terry's book was so important for us. We're not a wide publishing company, we're more of a movie studio, but we really felt, how can you tell a story on multiple platforms? And Jenna Finds a Dog was like the perfect fit for us to actually, not only publish it, for the benefit of Terry, but also for the messaging, but also to do some good. So any way that you can tell a story, or any way that you can do, either by being in nature or showing a piece of storytelling that somebody can read in the dark with their friends, under the lights, under the bed, and say, Mom, Dad, maybe I can get a dog, or maybe I cannot get a horse, but maybe I can volunteer, or maybe I can be, in a naturalist, environment, and I can go and explore what it feels like. I think anything that we can do to get the kids off the easy fixes, which is the meds, or getting off their phones, which is also another big thing, as you all know, like you said, oh, they're playing outside. Oh, they're not texting. They're actually like forgot their phones even existed because they're out, on their bicycles, and experiencing that. That is, like you said, I mean, sometimes I look at my window. I live in LA in a residential street, and when I'm seeing kids on a bicycle, like, I can't even believe it. And I'm guilty of that too, because I'm go, oh my God, I hope that car, they're watching and they're careful. Of course they're careful. We cannot like tell them to stop being on a bicycle because we're worried about cars. Anything can happen, but they need to experience that. So yes, I love exactly what you said. It's,
I love too. Like I feel like I ordered the book. I just haven't gotten it yet, but I ordered it. And I think that we infantilize children and teens and even young adults, right? And we have kids that we are undervaluing in terms of like what they're capable of. And so I feel like it's really, and then I think about like the equine community, right? And other communities that I've been a part of. And like I have family out in like northeastern Colorado, and like they were training and breaking horses at 8 and 9 years old, right? They were like herding cattle and doing all of this like farm stuff, and just like so capable, right? And I think that sometimes the cultures that we're in, or the places that we're in, we're like, oh no, you can't do that, you're not old enough, right? And I appreciate that it sounds like this book really speaks to the fact that children are capable and that they can too do big things.
They pull off a pretty good caper in this book, actually.
we all had a purpose for it, which is why I think it came so effortlessly and so beautifully, and everybody chimed in and everybody thought. And then I love Heidi's last chapter bit, with life lessons. We have a little life lesson sectors with like things and shows that, you can actually already know who you want to become when you grow up. We're not going to give away the ending, but almost like destiny finds you by doing the things that you love. And that is so important, So I think, yes, I mean, anybody who wants to obviously pick up the book, we would appreciate it because, it does so much good to us, to Terry, to, the children, to the future generations. And yeah, little shameless self-promotion there. I should be like flashing out the book too, but yeah, I'll let him do it. But yes, and anywhere that we can also help and promote the show, obviously, and those conversations that you're having on your podcast, I think is very, very important, it takes a village, like you said, hashtag it does take a village, we need to talk about those things. Parents, do whatever, whether you get the book, whether you listen to your podcast, whether, you get some more books that we're rolling out, or whether you like going in nature and doing equine therapy, or you're volunteering or rescuing, do something. We're not the only people living in this planet. There's trees and there's plants and there's animals, and they have just the same rights as we do as humans, or even more so, because they've been here longer. So let's respect them, and let's come together. That's so important.
One thing I was always telling folks, I get a lot of patients, and I had a kindergarten teacher today, and I told her about the book, and she got all thrilled. And I said, well, I'm not sure it's for kindergartners. For the younger kids, I tell the parents that you might want to pre-read it first, and it probably would be a book you'd sit down and discuss various issues with your child. Along those lines. And the kindergarten teacher, I was a little surprised, but she's like, well, I've got students, and they know when their parents get drunk, and they know about drugs, and they know this and they know that. And I was like, oh my God, I don't, just crazy anymore with some of this, the worldly knowledge that some of these young kids have is, I guess, is astounding. But yeah, different families are on different levels, as far as, the spectrum of what they consider to be good and moral or not or whatever. So I think it's written primarily for like teens, preteens, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I have a lot of adults that love it. They say it's not just for kids. But for the younger kids, it probably would be a good idea to pre-read and then sit down and explain, like, well, what Jenna's doing here really is not good. That's why she's getting in trouble, sort of thing, because it is very real world, the story.
Yeah. Well, and I think really when we're talking about different types of media, different types of resources, what it really is supposed to do is it's supposed to kind of encourage conversation about stuff that's happening in the world, right? And like the more we have those communications with our children, with our clients, with the parents we're working with, the more kind of like narrative and understanding kids do have, right? And so when you're writing about, Jenna, you're writing about this story, it's really like prompting conversations that maybe parents wouldn't think about. Because I do think sometimes as parents, maybe we're all a little bit like guilty of being like, oh, they know, it's fine, they know. But really we have to go back and really make sure that like we're having those conversations that are foundational.
Yeah. Yeah. Very important. Talk about it. Ask your children, what do they feel like doing? What are they interested in? Take the time to find out what they gravitate towards, even as teenagers, don't think just because they're teenagers, that there's not going to be a part of them that is still a child, that wants the innocence of the world. And I think animals represent that, or represent the innocence, keep them, don't keep them gullible, obviously, give them awareness of what they have to face as they grow up, but also remind them that they can go back to a state of innocence, which is really what it is when you are connected with animals and you have a sense of purpose, and I love that, the kids come together, they find a way to communicate and come together and overcome all the bullying and being different, by having a common goal, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be an animal or, a competition. It could be, I don't know, flying kites. It could be, pottery. And it doesn't matter what it is, creating a little movie, that's the most important. And then you're right, Terry. I have a goddaughter and she's turning 4 and she knows how to use the phone more than I do. Which is crazy. She's watching and she knows what she wants, and she's watching all the cartoons, and some of them are way too like childlike for her. She's already ready to move into different things, and the world is changing. We got to keep the old values in.
It is, and there's so many different types of families out there. I mean, we have, and I hate to say, but I had a patient the other day, and it's like children having children. It's kind of, you know what I'm saying? We have folks now that are having kids, raising kids, that don't really understand all the ins and outs of life yet. And we're going, I don't know, second, third generation of these families where, the wisdom of the matriarchs and the patriarchs and all that is lost, and we're having just young people raising kids who were raised by young people who are being raised by young people. And I think that's what Charity was saying, is a lot of times we have to do training with the families, with the mothers and the fathers and all that, about how to be mothers and fathers. So that's a big part of what we're seeing as well. So I just thought I'd throw that in also, that it's important to address not just the child, but the entire family. And a lot of times that has to do with educating parents in addition.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that there's also a really strong component of social media and other sorts of like media in general that have, I think, glamorized teen pregnancy and like certain parts of like mental health and medication and all of that. And it's been really interesting to almost use that as a resource in session to be able to talk about like what the reality is of that, right? Or what the reality is of medication or treatment or whatever, because I think sometimes kids go on medication and they're like, I'm going to be fixed. I'm going to be perfect. Like, Wellbutrin is going to be the thing that's going to make my life amazing, right? And then their expectations are not met because it's not real, right? Or they have a baby and they're like, oh, I'm having this baby because, like, it's going to be mine and it's going to love me. And then they don't understand what the first 12 years of that is really going to look like, right? And so there's so many conversations that I think we're just not having, because I think people are like, oh, like the school will teach it, or they can look it up if they want to know about it. But I think direct involvement from families, like as Heidi was saying, right, like being so directly involved with your kids' care and being able to navigate and help support that is critical for long-term outcomes.
Yeah, I love what you just said. We love being on your podcast.
Well, I
Thank you
just
for
want to
having us. It's been so wonderful.
I just got to throw it in again. Jenna Finds a Dog, and it's available on all the .com bookstores, Amazon or Walmart or
Barnes
Target or
and
wherever.
Noble, everywhere. Yes.
BarnesandNoble.com, but it's the .coms primarily. I don't think they're being stocked anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Except maybe this little local bookstore in Ruidoso.
Yeah, no, bookstores can order them on Ingram Sparks, because that's like the distributor, and they can order and put them on the shelf. We'd love that, old school, for them to be on the shelf, but nowadays it has to be made to order. But if any local bookstores, they want to get them and carry them, they can find them on Ingram Sparks, and they can deal with that already. And they'll bring them everywhere in the United States and all over the world. So yeah.
Do you guys have any tips for a therapist who might be pursuing publishing or wants to get kind of a similar message out there, or any thoughts on this process? Because it sounds like the three of you are a really great team in building this.
Yeah, I think, for us, I mean, as I said, we built the publishing division of Little Studio Films because we feel every story deserves a platform and an audience. So if there's anybody that in your listeners that they think, oh, I have a story that needs to be told, I want to explore avenues, whether it's a script or a movie script or a novel or a short story or anything. I mean, by all means, reach out to us, because obviously we're very selected. We're not like, the big publisher, but because we curate, for us, everything has to have a social purpose, has to have like something that is really meaningful, so that we can curate it and we can like nurture it and shepherd it like we did with Terry. Heidi is a great, fantastic editor. I mean, she's the go-to for the adaptation, because nobody is really naturally born a writer. Some people are, but some people, they're having a hard time to. I mean, Terry's a great screenwriter, but I'm sure it would have been very challenging with him keeping the doors open as a doctor to also novelize it. So that's when Heidi came in. So anybody who feels that they want to leave an impact, whether it's a short book, it's a like ebook, or about teaching about something, we need that, so yeah, I mean, doors are open here, to have us have a conversation. Yeah. Heidi, you want to try?
And I do, and obviously, like Alexis said, we do make sure that the stories we pick are personal. We have a connection to them as well. But I think for anyone who wants to do it for the right reasons, don't put out a book, just put out a book. Have your why strong, to why you are the one that is right to tell this story. Just like Terry, with his experience with Jenna Finds a Dog, he was the right one to tell that story. So if you want to, so I always, keep preaching, what is your why? Why are you doing this? And why are you the right person to tell this story? So have a strong message, and
And you can write about anything. Honestly, you could even write an educational part. In fact, we're chasing Terry for something that he wrote about how to ask the right questions to doctors. And gotta publish this, because he wrote this, he shared it in his Google, and he's like, I think this is gonna be a hit. I'm like, probably, because if you go see a doctor and you don't know how to ask the right questions, then you're gonna walk away even more confused than ever. So anything that will give us information that is gonna be from the horse's mouth, pardon the pun, because you're working with horses, instead of Googling something and trying to find answers through AI, which AI is great and Google is great, but to hear it from the experts, like the wise old sages, as we call them, that are going to tell you something, whether, I think, by all means, do that, because we need more of that. We need the sages. We need the people who are going to be the guides with a little lantern and say, let me show you the way. I think it's so much better when it's done in a personal way, through books, through stories, through movies, through ebooks, through educational platforms, through what you're doing, where people are coming to you and you tell them this is what a horse done, versus like, let me Google what horse therapy means. You can actually show it. I think that is so important. So we're big champions of that.
Oh, I love that. I agree with you. One of the frameworks that I operate from the most is harm reduction, and one of the core philosophies of harm reduction is lived experience. And so they really talk about how I always say to my teens too, I'm like, it's really hard. I would never hire a marathon coach who hasn't run a marathon. Right. But when we think about who we're getting leadership from sometimes and who we're asking questions to, they don't always have the lived experience, or they're not in a space to talk about it. And like, that's okay. No pressure. But I do think lived experience means so much when we're talking about these things and really anything in life. So I love that message. I think it's great. I'm glad you're available for publishing, because I just think it's such a cool thing to have that as part of like the experience.
Yeah, no, we totally are. Like I said, we have to find a way to tell the story, and it's so challenging today with social media. People are having wrong messages. They're following influencers. They think that somebody has 1 million followers. That means they know it all. No, they don't. They bought followers, so maybe they're trying it for attention. So, be very choosy about, also as a teenager, who you model yourself after. I think you need to, yes, I mean, of course, there are some great influencers that can teach you a lot of things. I follow some of them when I get to want to do some dance moves, or I see people in their, 50s, doing TikTok on dancing, or like doing some, I'll follow it. But like I said, do I want to learn how to dance? I want to go to a dance school. I'm going to learn it from a pro, just like you said. That will help a little bit to have some practice time, but
I was going to say, when I see patients, a lot of times, they look up Dr. Google and they come in and they're so worried because they have every symptom of every disease there is. And they're like, oh, well, you need to test me for this and you need to test me for that and you need to test me for this other thing and whatnot. And so, I mean, all that information is not that it's not relevant, it's just they don't have the proper perspective. So I said, well, that's where I come in. That's my job as a doctor, is I have the perspective to realize that, okay, this one is probably nothing to worry about. That one's nothing to worry about. This one here, yeah, well, let's concentrate on that. So without that perspective, you're just going to get a bunch of facts thrown at you. And I know it's not just medicine; it's everything today. But yeah, it's good to have an expert that can put things into perspective and help you see clearly what you need to see and focus on, what you need to focus on.
Exactly. I giggled when you said Dr. Google because that's exactly what I call it. And I have also fallen victim to being convinced by Dr. Google how many times I've had cancer or some other horrible thing because when you're Googling symptoms and don't necessarily know what you're looking for, it can be tricky. So,
yeah, because they want to cover their bases, right? And so they're like, head to the emergency right now. And you're like, what's happening? Am I having a heart attack? And you're thinking, you're freaking out, and it could be this and it could be that. And then there's like 25 references. And yeah, we're all guilty of that. And we scare ourselves. I mean, it's good to answer because, I had a parent who was in the hospital recently and it helped me interpret what the doctors were saying because sometimes they were talking they're not obviously like Terry and there's some of them were just going, oh, it's this, and I'm like, what the hell does that mean? So I actually did have asked AI to clarify a little bit, but by all means I was not going, I don't need a doctor, I'm just gonna solve it or I'm dying because there's a symptom happening, kids do that too. They rely on Dr. Google even on the mental health stuff. And I think it's good. We read about the AI that is, people are, and it's great to have ChatGPT and have a conversation, but you still want to talk to a real person. I mean, or hug a real animal, not a stuffed one, which are good. Stuffed animals are good too.
or as Heidi says, hug a tree. I actually really appreciate that. I might go do that later today just to see how it feels.
I want to just a little fun. I want to go closer with hug a tree. My friend is a paleontologist, so every year I go out and I dig up dinosaurs with her, and we have a fossil at this, where so I had my little fossil, and I started licking the rock, and they were like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, that's how you can determine a fossil from a rock." So now it's like hug a tree, lick a rock, but you may you may actually lick a rock and not a dinosaur bone.
I thought you were doing it to just get a taste of history.
Well,
I
that's
want to
your
know.
92 million year history.
Feel the history.
Right.
How
So
do
as a
you
doctor,
figure
I say
out
don't lick
what
asbestos. Don't do that.
No, no. Be careful what you pick up. Don't go licking everything. That was just so fun.
That's funny.
Oh my goodness. You guys are a fun group. I can see why it works.
Well, thank you. And we've actually met through you in face to face for the first time. Like we literally never met like Terry's like over Zoom. We've been talking on emails and
That's what he was
so you kind of
saying.
like responsible for it.
Hey,
I love this. I love this. Well, when Terry first reached out, he was like, "Can I bring my people?" And I was like, "Yes." Like I think that there's so much knowledge in the world, but people are very scared of like writing books and publishing and putting screenplays out, and they're worried about the commitment with it, right? Or where it's going to go or if it's going to go anywhere. And I so appreciate having all three of you here today because I feel like you've been able to share different perspectives of the process and what your connection to it was. And so it's cool. I feel like we don't get to see that often. So
I'm so glad. It took a while to convince Terry because I was like, well, how am I doing? I'm going, well, I don't I said, how do I know this is going to succeed? And I'm like, trust me, I have a gut instinct about this. And he's like, I don't know. I don't know if I have the time. I'm like, I got Heidi. Heidi's going to help you. She'll hold your hand. Don't you worry. It's going to turn out okay. He goes, and now I'm sure he's happy, right? You did the right choice. You're happy. You got a bigger purpose than just selling books because.
Yeah. I'm glad the story's getting out there. Yeah. And I thank you very much, Charity, for having us on here. That's great.
Yes, of course. Thanks so much for coming. I'm gonna have my VA link everything below so she can reach out and get all of your social media information, links for the books, all that stuff, so that we can put it out there and promote it as well. So, Heidi, are you just with Little Studio Films, or do you have your own separate editing thing?
I do mostly my editing and writing through little studio films. And yeah, and I on the side I do write on my other projects and all that. So yes, there's not enough hours in a day or days in the week.
I love it. I love it. And we'll share, of course, the show, and we'll share also about everything you're doing. We're getting together to do a documentary called Sanctuary Rising, and Heidi's one of the producers on it, and we want to talk about, we're going to be talking about equine therapy as well. So, we'd love to, yeah. So we would love to promote your show, of course, and everything you do, because, there might be, it's a big planet out there. We all need to come together. So, one hand washes the other. So, but for now, pick up Jenna Finds a Dog. We'll share your show because mental health is everything, and we'll take it from there.
Perfect. Well, it was great getting to meet all of you and getting to see the teamwork here.
I love it. Thank you for having us. It was so. Oh, look at the
Yours are
the
welcome.
kitties in the day.
Yeah, Casper always comes to say hi.
Got it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
cute.
Right.
There he is. See, he's giving us a seal of approval. So it's not a dog, but still.
That's animal therapy.
Yeah, there you have it.
Animal therapy. We're good.
Thank you so much. It was so good to talk to you. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, it was awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Okay.